Using designs, we need no longer risk the well-being of our men and women in uniform. Robots will take their place on the front line.
Scale back and streamline, but maintain security. Those were the watchwords today as the President and the Pentagon outlined the reshaping of the U.S. military and its focus.
Sorry I'm late, gentlemen.
Just got started, Bob. Take a seat.
It's okay. Proceed.
In the air, the hunter-killer aerial weapons platform. This isn't science fiction, it's reality, thanks to our top-secret innovation.
Our military will be leaner, but the world must know the United States is going to maintain our military superiority with armed forces that are agile, flexible, and ready for the full range of contingencies and threats.
The Defense Strategy Review, outlined at the Pentagon, aims to refocus U.S. strategy toward an increased presence in the Pacific, with an eye toward China and its rapid military buildup. The review also marks a shift away from military budgets that exploded in the wake of 9/11.
John D. III continued to run the family philanthropies, but was emerging from his father's shadow through his work in population control and U.S.-Asia relations.
Ironically, however, the very innovations that are making possible dramatic improvements in human well-being are also creating new problems which raise the specter of an alarming and possibly catastrophic disaster. The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population and stimulating economic development in a manner that is sensitive to religious and moral considerations.
We're in the back of a United Nations truck heading to the center of the city. You can see we're jammed in pretty tight with a lot of the same supplies that the World Food Program is going to be delivering to the people of Haiti. You can take a look next to me. You can see some of the UN guards. It's going to be their job to try to keep some form of order so things don't get out of hand. The truck's now made it here to the park near the presidential palace. A lot of people starting to push and shove their way, trying to get up to where the food is. The thing that I'm noticing too is there's a lot of small kids in there that are getting jammed up against other people.
It's not good. It's not good like that, okay? It's not good like that. Not good.
What is wrong with the biscuits? Why don't people want to eat?
It's a bad thing. It's a bad case.
What's happening is, I know it's hard to see, but he's basically yelling and telling people do not accept these biscuits because they're no good.
They are very concerned, but the biscuits are very good. They're okay, no?
Still see, they're running after the truck trying to get it. But that truck's gone now.
We've seen now there's a type of foreign assistance for vaccines or for AIDS treatment that are incredibly effective. These are all about saving lives. And the good news is that as you make those breakthroughs, the population growth in the country goes down.
Great leaders aren't born, they're made. Right here with the technology developed.
Mass media, television shows, amusement parks, drugs, alcohol, and every kind of entertainment to keep the human mind entertained so that you don't get in the way of important people by doing too much thinking. You had better wake up and understand that there are people who are guiding your life and you don't even know it.
We're in a lot of trouble.
That did not stop criticism of the new strategy.
We can fix it.
It is now within our power to make the face of the future. Ooh, it's me.
I'm just covering these points for you to think, because you can't accept your role and responsibility unless you properly prepare.
Within the FBI, who viewed itself as the vanguard of fighting, communism and so forth, they were always afraid that civil rights and the thrust for voting rights and so forth was, quote, a communist plot.
You take Martin Luther King.
that is being led by communists all over this great country feels that he has the key to the White House. He has the telephone call to the White House that can get anything he wanted.
I spoke to the white people. The white people rallied behind it, and we kicked the living hell out of the niggers.
Well, I've just gotten through a couple of weeks ago with a 45 or 46-day battle at Ingram Park, I call it. That's the park there in Birmingham where we stopped Martin Luther King. And I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we had that nigger whipped.
FBI in the South, rather than stopping Klan violence, would in fact allow it to happen.
Because you're an amnesia victim. You've been hit in the head, and you're in a state of amnesia. You don't know your name, you don't know your language, you don't know your religion, you don't know your culture, you don't know your God, you don't know your enemy, you don't know your friend, you don't know nothing. All you know is what white folks teach you. And they don't even teach you to think. You have to read a book written by a white man or a white woman, and you have to give it back just the way it is in the damn book. You don't get a degree in psychology or sociology. You get a book in quotology.
I'm extremely horrified, and I'm extremely embarrassed over my country. I like the United States, but by the same token, I think my country is an imperial country that is going downhill, and our leadership doesn't even acknowledge the problem.
John, well, right now, some new word. The U.S. is expanding its operations, its drone operations, to eastern Africa. This is part of an effort to take out suspected terrorists. Jennifer Griffin is live at the Pentagon with more on this story. Jennifer?
Hi, Jenna. Well, a senior U.S. military official confirms to Fox that the military is, in fact, expanding its drone campaign to multiple bases in eastern Africa and off the coast of the Horn of Africa to deal with the spread of al-Qaeda franchises in Somalia and Yemen. This official confirms that the program has been underway for over a year and that the Seychelles was chosen as a basing location when there was initial trouble establishing a base in Ethiopia. Djibouti was added as a basing option when the Seychelles did not agree that the U.S. drones be armed. The unmanned drones known as Reapers can be armed with Hellfire missiles and 500-pound bombs. The bases in Djibouti and Seychelles were established while the U.S. military worked to receive permission from the Ethiopians, we're told. That was their base of choice.
But here, all I can say about what the United States is doing, it's immoral. As a result of 9/11, we have altered our moral compass, and people begin to getting used to brutalizing each other. This is what happens. We Americans used to think, oh, what happened in Germany could never happen with us. Well, it's happening with us. And it's happening to the detriment of our global position, because we have lost we've lost respect.
Massive military budget. To try to put it into perspective, let's take a look at the U.S. military budget compared to other countries. Well, in 2011, the U.S. pumped $548 billion into the military. Compare that to $91 billion in China. Russia spent $63 billion. Iran, the country where the U.S. military is keeping close tabs on now, spent about $9 billion. And India spent $36 billion. But now that the U.S. is going broke, it says it needs to be more frugal in their military spending. This as they unveil plans for the most expensive piece of military equipment ever. Take a look at this. You are looking at the USS Gerald R. Ford, the biggest price tag for any single weapon in history. It cost a whopping $11.5 billion. That carrier is worth more than the GDPs of Nicaragua and Haiti combined. So is this what you call cutting back? Let's look deeper into this. Earlier I spoke to retired U.S. Army Colonel Douglas McGregor. I asked him if this is money well spent.
No, I don't think so.
The real question for the American taxpayer is, are you getting something better, a dramatic leap ahead in capability than what you normally would get with a traditional carrier? And the answer is really no. It's very expensive. We've invested in some new technologies, such as the electromagnetic aircraft lift system, which is designed to replace the catapult. It's troubled, we've got problems with it, it's not working properly. They'll eventually work through that. But the question is, do we really need it? What does it do for us that we don't already get from an existing carrier? And the question is not much. When you're spending billions and billions of dollars, in addition to what you normally spend, you expect a dramatic leap ahead. We don't get that with the F-35 either, which is designed to be launched from these carriers. And most of the things that people point to in the F-35 have to do with the intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance suite, the radars. All of those things could be refitted to F-15s and F-16s.
Interesting, Saudi Arabia. So as we kind of go back to the beginning of your report, one of the things you mentioned is that there was a little bit of hopping and skipping away from Ethiopia because the government did not get permission to put a drone base there. Do we now have permission from Ethiopia? Has there been developments, and why is that important?
It's our understanding that there is permission and that they're beginning to set up a base in Ethiopia. But the other significant development is that the Seychelles has now agreed that those U.S. drones, the MQ-9 Reapers, could be armed. So the U.S. military is sending armed drones back to Seychelles as another option in this expanding network of
One of the stumbling blocks in U.S.-Pakistan relations is that American drone attacks on al-Qaeda operatives on Pakistani territory continually resulted in civilian deaths. However, the U.S. military considers them so effective that it is building a number of new drone bases in Horn of Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. But as RT's Ganesh Chikhan reports, this policy has caught America in a vicious circle.
The U.S. is aggressively expanding its drone war by setting up more and more bases for those unmanned aerial vehicles, or the UAVs. They're armed with laser-guided bombs and air-to-ground missiles. A network of those drone bases is unfolding in East Africa. Ethiopia is hosting a fleet of hunter-killers, as they call them in the military. A similar installation has opened in the Seychelles. A new base is under construction somewhere in the Arabian Peninsula to enable more flights over Yemen. And all this, as U.S. officials say, is being done to target al-Qaeda affiliates in the region. Drones have become the main weapon of America's undeclared wars. It's a new kind of warfare, one that the U.S. is waging without sacrificing the lives of their soldiers in a number of countries like Pakistan, Yemen, and Libya for that matter. In Pakistan, for example, U.S. drone strikes have killed thousands of civilians and have netted only a handful of actual terrorists. Many of the victims' loved ones seek revenge, often by joining radical groups. So it's like a vicious circle when the U.S. seems to be fighting terror and provoking terror at the same time. And the question whether or not the policies make America safer is very arguable. But on top of the human cost and the boomerang effect of those often indiscriminate strikes, there's also the price tag of such rapid drone expansion. We're talking about billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayers' money at a time when the country is on the verge of another recession, when 14 million people are jobless, and 1 in 6 Americans lives on food stamps. And many here do find it outrageous that with a gigantic debt problem, sluggish economy, and with 3 wars at hand, American officials still lavish money on military projects which some experts say may well backfire at their own security.
Defense Secretary Leon Panetta said the changes will not be painless.
There's no question that we have to make some trade-offs, and that we will be taking, as a result of that, some level of additional but acceptable risk. These are not easy choices.
take off. Once we're airborne, our two primary things that we do is we set up the comm link between here and back in the U.S.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad.